Greetings, it is I, Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion of the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons, 5th Ed D&D. We've been talking about magic items from the DMG, the information that's provided there. Let's dive back into it. So, Attunement. Some certain magical items will require you to form a bond with them in order to unlock its full potential. This potential, this bond, is referred to as attunement. Now, attunement isn't something as easy as just bonding with it. Certain items may have requirements for you to in order to enact this attunement, this bond. These can be anything from a specific class you need to be in order to attune with this item, or sometimes as simple as just, I have to be a spellcaster. For example, if you are a spellcaster, though, things like monsters could even attune with a spellcaster type item, because they may have spells and spell slots. Then they would qualify as a spellcaster in this case and be able to attune with this item. The fact is, this item, even if I haven't attuned with it, is still the item it was. Now, attunement and the item itself will list what will happen when I'm attuned with it. It will also say whether or not this item has any magical properties if I'm not attuned with it. There could be the case where this sword I've got can still do something if I'm not attuned with it, but I unlock infinite more powers when I attune with it. The fact is, regardless if this is the case or not, which will be within the magic item's description, it's still a sword. A shield's still a shield, armor's still an armor. They function just the same as their non-magical counterparts. Now, things like rings and cloaks and belts, well, that doesn't really give you any bonus for having the non-magical counterpart. But if I had a shield, it's, you know, still defending me. If I had a sword, I can still stab it into people. Regardless whether being attuned with it or not will unlock any kind of magical potential. Again, description will tell you whether or not you get anything normally, whether or not it attunes, and what that attunement gives you. Now, if I do want to attune with an item, it will require a short rest, where I'm effectively in physical contact with this item. Now, this doesn't mean just like, oh, I'm kind of resting around holding on to this sword. Usually it should see something appropriate. If I'm attuning with a sword, I should be practicing with that sword. You know, getting a hold of it, getting a feel for it. Okay, this is how that sword works. Okay, cool. Now, if I'm interrupted any time during this short rest, the attunement fails. But I can just do another short rest to replace that, time period. I will just have to rest again if something should interrupt me. But if nothing interrupts me, at the end of that time, I have attuned with this item. Now I've unlocked its full potential. I know all of its abilities. I know any command words that might be known. I know what I can do with this item in hand. Now, a magic item, it can only be attuned to one person at a time. That means I can't share an item and share the attunement with someone else. They would specifically have to attune with it on their own separately. It is an important fact that a creature themselves can only attune with three magic items at one time. That means as soon as I attempt to attune to the 4th magic item, it fails. This doesn't mean I'm locked into those 3. I can break my attunements with a magic item. It's also important to note here, though, and this is a very important one, I can't attune to more than one copy of the same item. Before we dive into that next part there, but I can't have two copies of the same ring and be attuned to both of them. They have to be individual magic items. Now, breaking your attunement, though. Now that we talked about that last bit of forming your attunement. First way to do it, no longer have the prerequisites. If the prerequisites said I need to be a spellcaster or need a certain class, if for some reason I'm not a spellcaster anymore, I don't have that class anymore, well, then I don't meet the prerequisites. I can't use that magic item anymore. I can't attune with it anymore. Second way, if this magic item that I was attuned to is at least 100 feet away from me, if not more, for 24 hours straight. So I put it somewhere else, leave it for a day. When I come back, I'm not attuned to it anymore. Now, I could also, number 3, die. Dying breaks your attunement. But that's probably what most people don't want to do to break attunements. No, the easiest way to break attunement is to take the item you're attuned to, spend a short rest with it, and throw it away. Break the attunement. The exception to this is if it's cursed. But let's talk about cursed items. Cursed items are items that have a particularly sinister magic to them that bedevils their users. And many curses keep their effects on their users long after they've put down the cursed item itself. The description of the cursed item will tell you how exactly the curse interacts with your character and how long they're going to have to deal with it before perhaps they don't have to worry about it anymore, how long this curse will afflict them. Now, the methods for identifying a cursed item, well, they identify it as the normal item it really would be. Most identifications identifying the curse aspect of it fail. That's an important aspect here. Identify a spell, will fail to identify it. With it or a short rest, fail to identify it. There is some exceptions. If I'm doing research on the item itself, part of the lore that I would find could perhaps hint at a curse. But a curse is meant to be a surprise that hits your character all of a sudden, that you're like, oh, magic sword! Hey! Oh, magic sword. Ugh. Cursed sword. Now, my attunement with this cursed item, guess what? It doesn't end voluntarily. As soon as I've attuned with this item, which is more than likely the time that I would get hit with the curse, I can't unattune with it. Unless the curse is broken. Once the curse is broken, guess what? I can unattune with that weapon all I want and hope someone else deals with the problems with it. Now let's talk about the specific types of magic items, because there are a number of categories of magic items that each have their own particular rules. We start, of course, with magic armor. Magic armor, unless specifically stated under the description of the magic item, must be worn to have any of its special effects happen to you. That means it's a specific type of leather armor. I have to have leather armor on me. If it's a shield, I gotta have the shield on my arm. Then I can have the magical effects of this armor or shield. Some magic armors will specifically list the type of armor that it is. It'll say this is a chainmail or this is a plate mail. Others will give options. Some will give nothing. If it says nothing, then it will be up to your DM to choose which type of armor it is, or to roll randomly to determine what type of armor when it comes to getting these magic armors. Now, potions are basically any type of magical liquid grouped together. That's what a potion is. It could be brewed from special spring water using herbs, from special materials, oils. Regardless of the concoction of it, traditionally a potion itself is a single type of liquid. Potions are a consumable item. You either have to drink it up yourself, or you have to administer to another. Both of these require an action, and at the end of the action, well, the potion is used up, and the person has the effect. Certain other potions and other materials such as oils might specifically list a time period that we're required to apply them, because things like oils you smear on stuff. It might take longer. In this case, that item will say, this is how long it takes you to use this item. Once a potion is used, the effects are immediately, and then the potion is used up. So you get that immediate effect. Now, rings are very powerful magic items that have a wide variety of effects, should you be lucky to find one and get a hold of it. Magic rings must be worn on a finger. Traditionally, of course, it's the ring finger, but it might say specifically you should wear it on different fingers depending on the magic ring itself. But you can have 2 at a time. A rod, it's a special kind of scepter or stick. It's usually made of metal, wood, or bone. It's like about this wide, this long. It's not a large thing, but a rod is there. Usually it's about 2 to 5 pounds. Now, magic scroll. These are spells stored in written form. This could be anything from a basic spell, special incantations, or even potent wards. Regardless of the format it takes, it's going to be on some kind of parchment that will unscroll, unfur out. Sometimes the tops and bottom of this parchment have good wood sticks that makes it easy to unfurl and furl back up. And more traditionally than anything, it will have some kind of protective tube that you will store it in. Whether this is made of ivory, bone, wood, or metal, it will just be something that you could store the scroll in for pulling out and casting at a point in time. A scroll is a consumable item. Using the spell on the scroll, unleashing the magic that's within it, causes the spell to, of course, have its normal effects. But after it's done, then the spell itself, the words either fade or the scroll crumbles to dust. It will be an action for you to cast this spell regardless. Any creature that can read a language can understand the arcane script on a scroll and activate it. That's an important thing. As long as you can read, you can use a magic scroll. But that's it for today. So we talked about an important part of magic items. Attunement. Your bond with an item that unlocks its potential, which not all items will have, but many will do. Choose your attuned items wisely. Then we talked, of course, about cursed items, which is a version of an attuned item that you're not getting rid of, and some of the categories of magic items. In the next episode, of course, I'm going to dive deeper into the categories of magic items and talk about using the magic items, from wearing them, wielding them, or just activating them. But I hope you're having a great day, and until the next time, I bid you farewell.